As a guitar player, which I'm sure many of you guys watching are right now, the way that the guitars sound in my mixes are very important to me. The one thing that's super important to me, especially with this whole YouTube thing going on, is that I need great sounding mixes very, very quickly. So when Slate Digital got in touch with me and asked me to showcase some of their plugins, it was an absolute no-brainer because I've been using their plugins for nearly 3-4 years now off my own accord. It has nothing to do with them. I genuinely use them because I love using them, and anything that you've heard from me, whether it be mixed demos, full tracks, anything like that, Slate Digital stuff has been all over the mixes across the board, whether it's guitars, drums, mix, bus, master, anything. Slate Digital plugins are all over it. And that is no different with demo songs just like this one. In my opinion, the Slate Digital All Access Pass is an absolutely invaluable tool to every producer, engineer, guitar player, basically anyone that's doing anything music at home or professionally. A lot of the Slate Digital stuff is modeled after actual console gear, so you get the convenience of being able to mix at home or on the go or in your professional studio while maintaining the same sound and character of real famous physical console gear. Virtual Mix Rack is the absolute prime example of this, and it's definitely the Slate Digital plugin that I use the most. However, with that being said, the All Access Pass from Slate Digital isn't just plugins. There's a bunch of other stuff like mix tutorials, mix templates as well, sample packs, synths, all that stuff. It's just filled with everything you'd ever need as a producer or an engineer. So let's take a deep dive into the demo track and see how I'm mixing the song with the Slate Digital plugins. So here's the mix session for the demo song that you just heard. This song was for a bare knuckle Unity pickup demo. It should be out on the actual bare knuckle page probably in the next couple of days after this gets uploaded, but here is the track. We've got drums, bass, and then just a bunch of layers and stuff like that. And obviously all of these layers are guitars, but what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be looking at just the rhythm guitars. So before we get into anything, I should mention that I'm running everything into an instrument bus. So as you can see, all the instruments go into this instrument bus, and this is like my way of top-down mixing. A lot of this approach is taken from Nolly's top-down mixing approach, where you can probably see that a lot of the moves are the same. I have tweaked them a little bit, but generally, like, it's fitting this mix. It's just the same principle. So we've got Virtual Mix Rack. Love this plugin, put it on everything. As you can see, we've got a bit of EQ happening here and then trimming it all down because we're boosting up a lot of stuff, making the overall kind of volume louder, and then just trimming it down so it goes back to the point where it was before. So we've got a bit of high mid boost here, about 3 dB boost at around 5.4K. What else we got? We got a like 110-ish boost at about 1.5 dB. And then again, like the super highs, like that real kind of airiness at around 12K is being boosted about 2.4-ish. And then just like the really uber lows, like that super thumpy kind of low stuff at around 60 Hertz is being boosted by a dB, and then trimming it down by just under 3 dB. All of that then goes into the VBC FG Grey. As you can see, I've named this preset Nolly. The principle is pretty much the same, where the compressor kicks in only for the snare hit. So whenever a snare gets hit, it pokes through and there's about -3 to -4 dB gain reduction. From there, it goes into a second compressor, which is the VBC FG Red. This mix is set at 24%, so it's not affecting the whole signal. It's just kind of blending itself in the background, but this very much does affect everything. The threshold is super high, and the gain reduction is constantly at around -7 to -10 dB. So when I play the track back, you'll see what I mean with the compressor hitting at -3, -4, and then the whole track at -7 to -10. If I were to turn all the plugins in this instrument bus off, it would be very, very, very different. It would not sound as polished. It would not sound as compressed. It would sound kind of pokey in the sense that there'd be a lot of separate instruments and nothing would kind of be gelling together. There'd be no glue, and the whole mix would sound a little bit more dull because of that EQ being turned off. So if I turn everything off, you hear what I mean straight away. Turning on. I like to keep that on at all times when I'm mixing, because when I'm, making guitar tones, mixing guitar tones, doing all the post-processing, I want all that EQ and compression to be on because I want it to be affecting those tones that I'm mixing. I don't want to be compensating too much with all of it turned off. For example, if I was EQing a guitar tone and it wasn't as high boosted as I usually listen to it, because the instrument bus isn't turned on and all of this EQ isn't on, I don't want to turn it up on the guitar bus and then turn all of this on and then it's even more shrill because I didn't account for all of this. So this pretty much stays on at all times. Now going into the rhythm guitar section. So as you can see, these two here, so I'm only using 3 plugins for this entire thing. I could have gotten away with 2. I did add the third one just as a little bit of something. It didn't need to be there, but I thought it would kind of be cool to add it. But really, the bulk of this was done in 2 plugins. So at first, we've got the Infinity EQ. Now, I will preface this by saying that it doesn't matter what plugins you use, what company they're from. If your source tone sucks, there is no plugin or EQ or post-processing in the world that can fix it. But thankfully, with the Slate Digital stuff, especially this plugin in particular, alongside the virtual mix rack stuff, it's very easy and very intuitive to use, and it makes my life so much easier. This interface is very similar to a lot of other EQ stuff on the market. I really like this one because it just looks really pretty and it's super functional. So I've got a low cut at 97 Hertz and then a high cut at about 10.9. That's usually more than I'd go, but I think for this tone it was pretty shrill, so I kind of wanted to keep it a little bit more subdued. And then from there, general practice, do not copy these values of 2.9K and all that stuff one for one, because all of this is relevant to the guitar that you're using, the tone that you're using, the IR that you're using, all that stuff. It's going to be different every time, but generally the practice is the same, where you find out those whistly, super high-ish frequencies that are really just not pleasing to hear. You find them in your relevant scenario, and then you duck them down with a very, very, very slim Q. As you can see here, I've done it in 3 major problem areas. If I were to turn this EQ off, you'd hear the difference straight away. We then go onto a low cut at around 250-ish. This is pretty typical in what I do on most guitars, anywhere between 200 to 250. I'm always kind of ducking that frequency out, especially on lower tune stuff. This isn't that bad at drop C sharp, but if it was something lower than that, like drop F or something stupid, this would live a little bit lower on the spectrum. And then just pushing up some low mids here at around 400. I don't usually do that, but I figured that it worked really well in this mix. So I'm going to play it again, but I'm going to leave it with the EQ on and then turn it off, and you'll hear straight away that all these whistly frequencies and the general boominess and the shrillness will start to come in. As you can probably tell, it sounds way more subdued, a little bit warmer, kind of honky in the mid-range, which is something that I'm not usually a fan of, but I figured in this mix it works really well. Without this instance of virtual mix rack, it would sound very dull. I've done a lot of high boosting here to kind of bring it back to life, but that's the beauty of this. I can add as many EQ modules as I want and kind of just keep going. So again, moving on from Infinity EQ, after we've done more of that surgical EQ stuff, we then get onto the broader moves of EQ within virtual mix rack. So we've got this one here, the FGN for really like super high end stuff. I do like this one a lot, the CS EQ, that's great. And then we get into a little bit of compression and then just trimming it down so it gets to the original volume that it was at before. So the only thing we're doing in here really is taking around 5K out, just like very slim, very, very subtle move there. And then again, adding some low end oomph back at around 96 Hertz with about 1.2 dB boost there. I've clicked the bell switch on, so it's kind of more focused and not so much like a whole low boost, kind of just focused in that area a little bit more. And then at around 1.7K, I've boosted it at around nearly 3 dB up. So that's a range that I really like on my heavy rhythm guitars. Anywhere between 1.5K to 2.5K, I'm typically boosting quite a bit. Then going on to the CS EQ, so just those uber highs at around 12K, I am pushing up nearly 6 dB, keeping in mind that this isn't really going to affect much because we've already low passed it here. But what I'm doing is just I'm kind of accounting for anything that might have been lost in that process. And then again, around 600, boosting up ever so slightly to make it a little bit warmer. Going into a touch of compression, this doesn't really peak any more than negative 3 dB of gain reduction. I don't usually do this when I'm usually doing progressive metal tracks where the guitar is the focus. I don't want it to be that compressed. I want you to hear the dynamics, but because I almost see this demo track as like a Polaris song in a way. It sounds very Polaris to me. It sounds like a big Polaris chorus or something like that, and I'm making room for vocals, so I'm kind of controlling the dynamics of the guitar more than I would. But it's good that I use this pretty much all the time whenever I'm compressing guitars, because it just lives in the virtual mix rack and I can just pick it out here and dump it on there and start with my electric guitar preset, but then I will fiddle with it a little bit. I might make the release faster and the ratio down a touch, and you know, it's just super, super handy to use. And then from there, last but not least, is the trimmer. So basically after all those moves are done and everything's gotten louder, I'm kind of just trimming it back to where it was before, just so I don't have to move the fader around too much with it on and off. Off. On. Again, you can probably tell it sounds way more focused when all of this stuff is on. It sounds very processed, but that is the nature of this when it's super dense mixes. You know, you want everything to sit well. You might argue that the guitars sound better when it's off, but trust me, in a full mix context, you want everything to be sitting as well as it can. Obviously, when you're playing by yourself, you want to hear all that low end rumble and that high end hiss, because there's nothing fighting for that. But when you add cymbals and a bass guitar and a snare and all this stuff that are kind of fighting for the same space, it just gets way too washy. So in a full mix context, these moves make sense, especially with the virtual tape machines here. Like that, I just added that because I wanted to add a little bit of like low end thump, you know, a little bit of saturation and stuff like that. But really, I didn't have to do this. I just did it cause. But if I turned all of these effects off and played it back with a full track, you can definitely hear how the Slate Digital stuff really affects how the guitars sit in the mix. On. So there you have it, that's the process on how I pretty much mix all of my heavy gain guitars. If you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you saw or heard, and if you want to see more of this stuff, definitely think about subscribing. If you want to support me directly, you can check out things like tabs, stems, DIs, all that good stuff on the Patreon for the demo song that you heard in the beginning of the video, as well as all the other stuff like affiliate links and merch and tabs and all that stuff on the web store. Everything that I just mentioned will be in the description below. Massive thank you to Slate Digital for getting in touch with me for doing this video. I've been using their stuff for a while now, as I mentioned before, and I have no problem in showcasing their products because I genuinely use them every single day. Massive thank you to all my Patreons, and massive thank you to every single one of you watching. I would not be in the position to make videos like this without you guys. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao.